There is a reading of Rugrats where no baby survives past infancy. Chucky died with his mother. The DeVilles lost both twins in the womb. Tommy was stillborn. And Angelica, the only child who made it, created them all, fractured imaginary companions born from guilt, loneliness, and a 3-year-old's desperate need for a world she could control. The theory has circulated for over a decade. It transforms one of the most recognizable children's cartoons of the 1990s into a story about a child processing catastrophic loss by inventing friends who can never leave her. And if you watch the show through that lens, it almost works. Almost. The question is why it works at all, and what that tells us about how animation creates meaning that no one intended. Rugrats premiered on August 11, 1991. As one of Nickelodeon's original 3 Nicktoons, alongside Ren and Stimpy and Doug. Created by Arlene Klasky, Gabba Csu Poe, and Paul German, the show followed a group of toddlers navigating a suburban world that was vast, dangerous, and almost entirely unsupervised. It ran for 9 seasons across 13 years, spawned 3 theatrical films, and became one of the most valuable properties in Nickelodeon's portfolio. It was made for children, broadly, loosely, in the way all children's television of that era was made for children, which is to say it was made to hold attention between toy commercials under broadcast standards that policed violence but not neglect. Here is the argument. The dead baby theory has 0 documented production support, no creator, writer, or showrunner has endorsed it, and substantial textual evidence contradicts it outright. But the theory persists because Rugrats' actual creative decisions, made for practical and industrial reasons, accidentally built the exact structural conditions such a reading requires. The baby's private language, Angelica's unique narrative position, and the show's uncanny visual atmosphere were all solutions to concrete problems. How do you make infants into protagonists? How do you drive conflict between 2 worlds? And how do you look unlike anything else on television? Those solutions created a text that can absorb a dark reading without breaking. The theory's persistence reveals something real, not about secret meaning, but about how animation's freedom from physical reality creates an interpretive vulnerability that live action does not share. Let me walk through the 3 mechanisms. First, the private language. The show's foundational premise is that the babies talk to each other but not to adults. Adult speech reaches them as garbled nonsense. This is the engine of virtually every episode. The babies misinterpret something an adult says or does, build an adventure around the misunderstanding, and return to the status quo. Paul German has described the premise emerging from watching real infants interact and imagining the conversations they might be having, the simple observational comedy hook. The industrial logic is straightforward. To make babies into protagonists, you need them to communicate, but if they communicate with adults, they stop being babies. The private language solves a structural problem. But it also creates the exact condition the dead baby theory needs. A world that only one character can perceive, that leaves no verifiable trace in the world adults inhabit. That is the architecture of an imagine-a-friend narrative. The episode depicts babies having conversations in a playpen that adults never witness. The pattern suggests this was always a comedy engine. But the theory repurposes it as evidence, and the repurposing works because the engine and the evidence are structurally identical. They are the same mechanism read through different assumptions about what is real. Second, Angelica's position as the bridge. Angelica is the only child who talks to both adults and babies. She moves between worlds. She is also, consistently, the antagonist, manipulative, cruel, selfish, and frequently punished or excluded. The theory centers Angelica as the sole real child, the traumatized imaginer. This is not arbitrary. Textually, Angelica is the only toddler whose existence the adult world continuously validates. she receives commands, corrections, and attention from grown-ups. Her complaints are heard. Her tantrums have consequences. The babies, by contrast, exist in a space the adult world acknowledges physically but never verbally. Adults pick them up and move them, but the babies' inner lives are invisible. Angelica's bridging role exists because the writers needed a character who could generate conflict between the two worlds the show occupies. She is a functional necessity. But that functional necessity maps perfectly onto the theory's central claim, that only Angelica is real, and the others exist only in the space she can access. The industrial context makes it likely this was a writing solution, not a buried subtext. But the writing solution and the subtext are, again, structurally the same. Third, the atmosphere. This is where the theory gains its visceral power. Rugrats looks wrong. The character designs are bulbous and asymmetrical. The babies have enormous heads and tiny limbs that move with a wobbly, near-necrotic stiffness. The adult faces are grotesque, all jutting jaws and crooked teeth and misshapen eyes. The domestic spaces are cluttered, dim, slightly damp. Shadows pool in corners that children's animation typically leaves bright. This was Klasky Csupo's house style, visible across our real monsters, the wild thornberries, and as told by Ginger. It was a deliberate aesthetic. Csupo's background in European animation pushed against the clean lines of American television. And Nickelodeon needed visual distinction. The original Nicktoons were commissioned explicitly to look unlike anything on network television. The grotesquerie was an industrial and aesthetic choice, not a thematic one. But the effect is that Rugrats feels uncanny in a way that a live-action show about neglected toddlers simply would not. In live action, a messy living room is just a messy living room. In animation, every shadow is a choice someone made. And when every frame is a choice, the audience can read those choices as meaningful even when they were practical. The theory draws heavily on this atmospheric wrongness, treating style as evidence. Style is not evidence. But style creates the conditions under which evidence seems to accumulate. So here is where we are. 3 mechanisms: private language, the bridge character, uncanny atmosphere, each have clear practical explanations rooted in writing needs, aesthetic commitments, and industrial imperatives. None required a creator to intend dark meaning. But together, they build a text that accommodates a dark reading with unusual ease. The theory requires no distortion of the show's mechanics. It simply changes one assumption, that the babies are real. Everything else follows. Now, the steel man against. The strongest version of the counterargument is that the dead baby theory is an exercise in selective attention that collapses under the weight of what it must ignore. Adults in Rugrats physically interact with the babies constantly. They pick up Chucky. They change Tommy's diaper. They worry about Dill. Grandpa tells stories to them. In the 1998 movie, Tommy gets a new brother in a sequence involving multiple adult characters in a hospital. The theory requires that all of this, every physical interaction, every worried glance, every diaper change, is either Angelica's hallucination or narratively unreliable. That is not a reading. That is a rejection of the text's basic terms. The creators have publicly dismissed the theory. No production document supports it. No writer has claimed it. The theory survives by treating the show's functional mechanisms as evidence while ignoring the enormous volume of textual evidence that contradicts it. The theory is not wrong because it's dark. It's wrong because it requires more assumptions than the text it claims to explain. But here is what I think matters. The theory is wrong about Rugrats. But it is right about something else. Animation, by removing the physical body from the frame, removes the most basic anchor of reality that live-action film provides. A baby on a live-action set is manifestly, undeniably real. It is a physical organism taking up space. A baby in animation is a drawing. It exists because someone drew it. And once reality becomes a choice rather than a given, the audience can question that choice. You cannot watch a live-action child and argue they might not exist. You can absolutely do this with an animated child, because animation makes existence contingent. The dead baby theory exploits this vulnerability. It takes the freedom that animation provides, the freedom to depict a world that looks and moves however the artists decide, and turns it into epistemic uncertainty. If reality is chosen, it can be unchosen. If a baby can be drawn, a baby can be undrawn. The implication extends beyond Rugrats. Any animated work that depicts vulnerable figures, children, animals, the imaginary, carries this structural vulnerability. The audience knows, at some level, that what they are watching is a series of decisions, not a recording of reality. And that knowledge creates a gap where dark readings can take root. This does not mean those readings are valid. It means they are available. They are available in a way they simply are not in live action. The dead baby theory is not really about Rugrats. It is about what animation makes possible in the mind of a viewer who knows that nothing they are seeing had to exist. Here is the framework I want to leave you with. When you encounter a dark reading of a children's show, any dark reading, ask 3 questions. Who made this creative decision? Under what constraints? And does the decision have a simpler practical explanation than the one being offered? If the answer to the third question is yes, you need production evidence to advance the reading beyond coincidence. If no such evidence exists, you are not uncovering hidden meaning. You are demonstrating how a medium's structural properties create interpretive space. That is not nothing. It is genuinely interesting. But it is a claim about how animation works, not about what Rugrats means. The dead baby theory tells us nothing about what Klasky, CSU Poe, and German intended. It tells us something about what animation permits. The question it opens is not whether Rugrats was secretly about dead children. The question is why we want it to be, and what it says about the medium that it can make us feel, even for a moment, like it might have been.